We are here living the authentic life, and we have Beth Muecke in the house. You probably know her as BethieLife, and she is so fun, whimsical, always in pink and bows and girly and tulle.
Gotta be something.
Well, you do it well. Oh, and rhinestones.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess so much of that came from you being a dancer. I mean,
Yes.
You were a dance major.
I was a dance major at University of Texas. Hi, doggy.
Grace Kelly, no affecting the tights. And you look at your dance today.
Yeah, I was a ballerina. I'm still a ballerina. I'll always be a ballerina. And it's just, it comes out in a lot of my life. You know, I've been on the board of Houston Ballet for 23 years. I chaired the Ballet Ball. I mean, they'll have to drag me out of that place. You know, it's my home away from home, and it's my passion. But I also reflected in my fashion. I wear a lot of ballerina-looking type clothes. In fact, my dry cleaners, the lady at my dry cleaners, usually she asks for my phone number.
Uh-huh.
And she says, "Oh, I don't need your phone number anymore. I put you down as Ballet Beth."
Oh.
Ballet Barbie Beth.
Oh my God. Okay, well, that is incredible. I feel like Sarah Jessica Parker and Sex and the City kind of brought tutus back for adults.
Totally.
And I loved that she did that.
Yes.
And I still so embrace that whole idea.
And of course, she had Mikhail Baryshnikov was her boyfriend in the show.
Yes, who I was obsessed with. I guess the first time I really watched him was in White Nights. Was that back in the 80s?
The
that
80s,
he did
yeah.
with Gregory
Hines.
the tap dancer.
Mm-hmm.
God, they were amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I did get to go to the New York City Ballet Gala. We were really
that's
supportive
fun.
of the Vail Dance Festival, and we bought it as an auction item. And
I've been to that festival.
oh, you have? Isn't it enchanting to
Yeah.
watch the most incredible dancers
Yeah.
outside in a theater? Because you have Vail roots too. We've
Yes,
talked about this.
My father started taking me to Vail when I was 14, and then he ended up owning 2 separate houses there over a period of 25 years.
Wow.
So he finally had to sell his house due to ill health because you can't go to that altitude if
It's
you have
hard.
heart problems. But yeah, I kind of grew up going to Vail. Yeah.
Well, my first time to go was I was 10.
Uh-huh.
And then I guess we bought a place there in 1984. I guess I was 10 then. No, I'm just kidding. I was not 10.
Yeah.
I might have been in high school. But it's such a happy place for me.
Yeah.
So many great memories because you could finally slow down. But okay, let's get back to dance. So I'm at this New York City Ballet Gala. Sarah Jessica Parker is in the room and Mikhail Baryshnikov. So I see him and I walk up and ask if I can have a photo with him. And he did say yes, but he's not warm and fuzzy. He's not very friendly, but he wasn't rude. He was just Russian and old and persnickety.
Yeah.
But I loved him in that role of
In the movie.
And across from Sarah Jessica Parker.
And if you go back, I recently was watching something, I won't remember, and it was showing him dancing in his day. And I also won't remember which companies he danced for, obviously in Russia, but then
Yes.
he really, to this day, is one of the best male dancers of all time.
And he made male dancing sexy,
He did.
I think, because it was pretty much thought of as something that effeminate men did. And he was so masculine and strong.
Well, in Russia, it was you were treated as an athlete.
Yes.
If you were a ballet dancer. Just like you
Or a gymnast.
You were treated like an athlete.
They really...
Now, I do have to say, I spend obviously a lot of time at Houston Ballet, and all of those dancers there are also treated like the athletes that they are.
Yes.
You know, because our Houston Ballet dancers are dancers. They're ballet, they're jazz, they're modern, they're actors, big time actors, and they're athletes.
Well, Lauren Anderson was a podcast guest.
Yes.
What an athlete she is.
So I have a history with Lauren as well.
Tell us.
I have two quick Lauren stories. She and I are very good friends.
Of course you are. You're both badass women.
So I was asked in 2000 to chair the Ballet Ball. And Ben Stevenson at the time was the artistic director. And he and Patsy Chapman, who Patsy, was big time Houston Ballet employee, ran the Nutcracker, everything. She's retired now.
Okay.
So they took me to lunch. And they said, we're so excited you're chairing the Ballet Ball. We have a really big favor. And I was like, okay. And they said, we're premiering a ballet in March, and the Ballet Ball is always in February. And in years past, we've asked ball chairmen to maybe use the theme for their ball of the upcoming premiere ballet. And a lot of them has said no for whatever reason.
Interesting.
And I won't name one ballet that was declined that I will never understand. But anyway, but I won't name it. So they turned to me and said, we're premiering Cleopatra. I said, say no more. I'm so in. And they were like, you are? I was like, first of all, it's brilliant. Second of all, you just checked a box I don't have to think about what to theme.
How do I guess? And what do I wear? That's pretty obvious.
And what do I wear? And Lauren was Cleopatra. So the ball was at the Wortham, but we tented the plaza out front.
Wow.
And so we had all these beautiful rugs and all this. This is where you mingled. And then when you walked in to go up to the party, Lauren was there, of course, but we had this big Cleopatra setting with dancers. And so she and I just, from day one. So then fast forward, many years later, I started my BethieLife website in 2014. And as you well know, for 5 years, I did woman or man crushes. I did it typically once a month, sometimes twice a month, but typically once a month. And interviewed people, profiled them on my website. You were one of them. And of course, I asked Lauren. So
of course,
in our interview, so I did, when I profiled people, I did physical pictures of them in like 3 different outfits. Then I did a written interview, and then I did a video interview, much like we're doing today. So Lauren came in for her video interview, and we sat down, and I sort of had a list of typical list of questions that I asked each one of you. And she said, well, I'm going to tell you something in this interview that no one else knows yet. And I said, oh, good. So we got this, right? And she said it hasn't been put out there yet. But she said, you know how I think Oprah was mostly involved in this, in the secondary Smithsonian for Black history? I hope I'm getting that right.
Okay.
She said, I'm in the Smithsonian.
Wow.
And I said, you're kidding. And she goes, no, they've got point shoes in there. And the Houston Ballet is going to Washington, D.C., I think, next year. I'm definitely going to go see this. But I know like her point shoes are in there, and her story, because she was the first ballerina of color to be
a
prima ballerina in a major ballet company.
And the first African-American prima ballerina to be on the cover of a magazine, I believe, as well.
I believe you. I don't know that, but I believe you.
But she'd had a lot of firsts.
But she had a lot of firsts. And so she's in the Smithsonian. And then like when Misty Copeland with New York City Ballet was promoted, and this was fairly recently in the last few years, to prima ballerina, soloist, whatever they call it there, Lauren was the one who walked out on stage when it was announced that night after the ballet was over and presented her with the flowers.
Aww.
So yeah, love Lauren.
And she is such an athlete.
Yes.
My husband I grew up dancing tap, ballet, and jazz, but not as a ballerina, more as somebody who just loved movement and drill team. And
yeah,
it
you
was
were good.
exercise.
I saw you in the
Dancing with the Stars.
Dancing with the Stars.
I love dance. I still do. And so I asked him to come along because things are much more relaxed there. So he was open. And literally he tears up almost every performance because he's amazed by the magnitude of talent and athleticism in the dancers.
Yeah.
It really touches him.
Yeah.
And what I like too is that I think there's we're most fond of the proper ballet when we see things, although we also love, I think it's called Memphis Jukin. I'm not always saying it the right word. Mm-hmm. But we love that they bring these people from the New York City Ballet, but then they do all these other types of things.
Oh, yeah.
And they mix modern with it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so it's so much more about our culture as we are today, that there aren't as many constraints about what we do, but yet there's some freedom in it, and it's very international. It's so amazing. And I love how you take it into your clothing. So let's talk about fashion.
I do take it into my clothing.
It is I love tulle. I'm a pink girl and I love tulle, and I think it's because of dance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you picked up her to come sit with us.
I immediately picked up the ballet pink Chanel
Exactly.
tote.
And then you noticed this
and then I
pillow.
Immediately noticed this pillow, and I was like,
it was on Bella's bed when she was young, and she's like,
here?
I'm too grown up for it. I'm like, well, then give it to Mom, because I'm like aging back into it. Or I probably never aged out of it. But again, Hermes scarves used make pillows. So talk about fashion and dance.
So, yeah, fashion has always been sort of a part of my life. Mm-hmm. But it was, so my children graduated, well, they're 3 years apart. But my second one in 2011 graduated and went off to college, and I became an empty nester. And that was the exact same year that I was asked to do Dancing with the Stars for Houston Ballet, which was really fun.
Yes.
But that's
Lester Smith, was that under his, or that was different?
That was...
Lester also had a Dancing with the Stars, or did he dance with the Houston Ballet?
Maybe he was in one of the Houston Ballet. Well, I don't know.
There were three of them. He was a dancer, I remember, too.
Yeah, that could be. There were three.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. There were three Dancing with the Houston Stars for Houston Ballet. There were three of them. Okay. 1 year, and then they skipped a year, and then another year.
Got it.
So I was asked to do it in 2011, and I had continued being in a ballet class, but not like really. So I really had to bone up. So I went and I met with the choreographer, and I said, I'm a dancer, so we're going to notch this up here. And he's like, okay. And so it really like got me back into shape, which, you know, you think you're in shape until you have to do, a 3.5 minute dance.
And you're just like,
yeah. And I was like, you're gonna need a guy who's younger than me. You're gonna need a tall guy, because I want him to lift me up, you know, and all this stuff. Anyway, at the time of my life, and it was very life-changing for me, because I was a brand new empty nester, and it just opened these horizons of that I kind of wanted a new chapter in my life. It really did. To this day, I thank Becca Cason Thrash for asking me to do it. And I've told her, you know, what you provided me the timing ended up being very life-changing. And so in 2011, after that, I ended up becoming a single woman again, although I'm still very good friends with my former husband. I became a single woman and went out on my own. And so for 2 years, I just had fun, you know, kind of an empty nester thing. I went to music festivals. I love music. And concerts, and ran around and had the time of my life. So finally, like in 2013, I was like, you know, I should do something. I should get back and do something productive. But I didn't want to go back to what I'd done before, which was just mainly philanthropy. Mm-hmm. I was president of the March of Dimes Guild, president of Pelton Children's Center Guild. You know, I did Junior League, which I still do. But, you know, I didn't want to go back that way. So I literally said out loud, you know, they say it out loud.
Amen.
I said, okay, universe, God, I want to do something, but I don't know what. Just let me know. So they say if 3 different people come up and say the same thing to you.
Yes.
So literally within a couple of weeks after I said that out loud, I was at a luncheon at River Oaks Country Club I don't remember what it was for. And two girls that I was tryouts with in college, who I hadn't seen in quite a while, came up and they said, what are you up to, Beth? And I looked at them and I said, I don't know. I literally said that. And they said, you should do something in fashion. And then they sort of walked off. And I was like, okay, And then one other thing happened to me where somebody said I should do something in fashion, and I don't remember right this second. But then finally one day, literally a week later, I was at Starbucks, just standing there in line, and I had this t-shirt on with the cover of Hotel California, from the Eagles, and the back of the t-shirt went really low, and I had this little skirt on, everything, no big deal. And this girl kind of taps me on the back, and she said, oh, I'm a student at the Houston Arts School.
Art
Institute. And I do fashion and photography and everything. And she goes, are you in fashion? And I turned to her out of the blue. And I said, yes, I'm going to start a fashion blog. And she goes, oh, you have a fashion blog? And I said, no, but I'm going to go start one. And I walked out and I started it. It was like,
wow, that is chilling.
Yeah.
That is, but you were open to the universe.
Open. Tell me what.
Yes, you were searching. You wanted answers.
Tell me.
But you also knew who you were. And you knew what you loved. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you were confident enough to step out. I think it's really hard for women who feel like they want something different but don't change anything. Like, don't leave their husband. Don't go to music festivals. Don't change their steps and then wallow in the fact that their life hasn't changed.
So when I decided to go out on my own, and that's speak for divorce, and everything.
Yes.
I bought like 4 or 5 self-help books. Even though I don't usually read self-help books, they're great when you're going through a little something.
Yes.
So one of them was like, face the fear and do it anyway. And then there was a couple more. Well, one I remember distinctly was about women in midlife, going through midlife. Because when women hit midlife, especially when they become empty nesters, it just opens up this whole new, and a lot of it can be very difficult for women.
Yes.
And I'm sure men too, but I'll focus on women. And so this one book in particular, they had interviewed like thousands of women who were in their 70s. And they said the only group of women in their 70s who held regret were ones who did nothing. Not ones who even made bad choices, or maybe like, why'd I do that? Or, the ones who did nothing. So
I read that quote that you said. And one of the articles about you, it said something like, you don't regret what you did, you regret what you didn't do.
Right. So when you change your life, when you've been one way, so at the time I was 51, and when you change your life, a lot of people don't like it. And
it's hard for growth. It's hard for friendships. Some people don't want to see the grown you or don't want to let go of what they see you as.
Yeah, and I did change, in their defense. I did change. Maybe they didn't like the new me. So I lost friends. I also was criticized at first because I started walking around Houston in high heels and socks, and no one did that anywhere. And so I was, heard people talking about me, and I also didn't and still don't dress age appropriately. And people talked about that. But they say if you're being authentic, now if I was being fake, like, oh, look at me in my socks or look at me in my little young outfit, people, but if you're actually being authentic and you're just being who you are, people will come with you. They'll finally get on board with you, which is what happened.
They like the energy. They like the confidence.
Well, they know you're just doing yourself.
Yes.
And one of a very well-known man of fashion in Houston who runs one of the stores in Houston came up to me like a couple of years later. He goes, okay, Miu Miu, Prada, Chanel, everybody's wearing socks with heels now. And I was like, Thank you. Thank you. And to this day, you know, so, but
And
yeah.
now this year more than ever, you're seeing the colored tights and the different colored tights with the different colored shoes.
Right.
You're like, oh,
Yeah,
you're
welcome. But getting back to being authentic to yourself. So what happened to me when I became, you know, on my own, I sort of reverted to reliving my 20s. Because in my 20s, I lived like someone in their 50s. I had a job I didn't like, you know, and then I became happy again in my 30s because I had my children, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But in my 20s, I was not happy.
So did you work like a 9-to-5 job in finance or something?
Yes.
You had a finance degree.
I ended up getting a finance degree, and I worked 9-to-5 in finance because I'm good with numbers. And I was very unhappy in my 20s. And I just didn't live like you're supposed to live in your 20s.
Yes.
And in college, I was rather disciplined because I became president of the Tri-Adult chapter. So I had to be very disciplined because I was Madam President, and which I loved every minute of it. But I just led a very disciplined life. Mm-hmm. So then when I got to my 50s, something snapped.
Hey.
And it was like, the universe was like, we're going to give you a solid and let you go back and kind of relive your 20s. So that's what I did in my 50s, is I relived my 20s. Authentically, though, not on purpose. You know, I dated guys in their 20s. I hung out with girls in their 20s, not exclusively, but, you know.
Right.
I dressed young because it was here, and it was here. And
you weren't trying to be something.
Oh, on the contrary, I fought it, actually.
But what can we share the glasses comment that your kids would tell you? Because I do this too when I forget my glasses. Will you tell it, or you want me to start?
Yeah, I'll tell it. So this was when I was in my late 40s, and I was still married, and my children were at home, and my son was like in high school, and my daughter was either in high school or close to it. And all of a sudden, like everybody else on the planet, in my late 40s, I started like losing my vision up close, you know. And my mother used to call it, if you can't read the phone book anymore, you know. So we were out at this lovely dinner, my husband, son, and daughter, and I was in complete denial about losing my vision. So they hand the menu to me, and I took the candle from the center of the table and I set it right on the menu. And this was before iPhones.
Right, that you could use the light.
Yeah, because this was like in the 2000s or whatever.
Early 2000s.
Yeah. So I put the candle there so I could, you know, read the menu. And my son, you know, boys, he looks at me and goes, Mom, do you think that makes you look any younger? Putting the candle on the menu than if you just get yourself some readers. And I was like, fine. So I went and got the readers. But
and I'm sure your readers were fabulous. They were a fashion statement.
They were fabulous. You know, who cares? You know, everybody.
Exactly. I know. I'm aging.
There's nothing you can do about it. But yeah, I had the best time ever living my authentic self.
I love it. So I also read where you had talked about a friend of yours had said to rip out papers and put it on a bulletin board and then look and see where it directed you. And I've never heard that before.
No,
I think that's pretty interesting.
It was excellent idea. So I didn't technically do what she said, but I did it up here. So she said, if you don't know where you want to go next, like if your life is a bit of a blank slate, which mine was at that time, literally a blank slate, which can be really exciting and really scary at the same time, you know.
So much opportunity.
So much opportunity, but it's scary, especially when you're older.
Yeah.
And so my friend said, go through magazines, all kinds of magazines. And when you fall in love with a picture, rip it out and put it up on a board, almost like a Pinterest. And she said, once you look at all that, then you're going to know what you like and what maybe makes you happy. And I sort of did that mentally. And she's right.
So there's a term that I found. It's called ikigai. And it's a Japanese term, and it's 4 factors. What do you love to do? What are you good at? What does the world need from you and what can you get paid to do?
Yeah.
And that is what BethieLife is. You were able to meet people and you were able to share their stories and connect through fashion. And you were doing that, kind of bloggers were coming along and you were monetizing it. You were making it a successful career. But how did you reach out to sponsors? Like, how did all of that?
Well, initially I didn't make money. I was doing it more as a hobby, this is what I want to do. It was just like I was drawn to create this website. And I wanted to start it as a fashion website and maybe, create some Houston backdrops and kind of feature Houston as a backdrop. If you notice, a lot of my pictures, I'm using backdrops in Houston. But I had hired an agency to help me create the website because I sure as heck didn't know how to do that on a computer. Unlike my daughter who created her own website like herself,
Yes.
But I'm from the 70s, So I hired an agency. Well, there was this young gal who was my, go-to there. Super nice girl. And she helped me create the site and I got it up and going. And she turned to me one day and she goes, "You know a lot of people in Houston, don't you? You know, like a lot of people who are in the high society and all that in Houston." I said, "Well, yeah, I didn't think much about it." And she goes, "I want to know about those people." And I said, "Oh, you do?" And she goes, "Yeah, I would read or look at your website to get to know some of those people." And she named some names, maybe some on the best dress list, maybe some, this or that. Well, I didn't think about it because I already knew them.
They were your friends. You had access to them.
Yeah. And I said, "Well, that's interesting." And that's when I said, okay. And we thought about it and brainstormed and decided I was going to do the Woman and Man Crush. And so I targeted people in Houston who were incredibly interesting for whatever reason. And many of them known. And what was interesting was I was one of the first people to do that in Houston. And so I got people who were even in the media.
Right.
Like news
to turn
anchors.
it on them versus.
And they were like,
"Oh, you want to know about me?"
Yeah. Like I even profiled people, news anchors, magazine owners, people that are in the limelight who said, "Oh, I've never been asked to talk about myself." And so they were thrilled to do that. And so I ended up profiling around 65 people over 5 years. And first of all, it put my website on the map. And then I was asked to cover parties, like as a media person. But my favorite thing about my Woman and Man Crush was it enabling me to get to know these people on a whole new level.
Absolutely.
Whole new level.
Past, "Hi, how are you? How's the weather?
Oh, how are you doing?" I'll see them at a luncheon or whatever.
Right. You could get to the deep stuff quicker.
Yes. And apparently I was somewhat of a good interviewer because almost every person said to me, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you got me to tell that story. I don't usually tell that story," or something like that. So it was really fun. And to this day, I'm on a higher level friendship with everybody I interviewed than before I interviewed them.
Completely.
And I'm sure you have the exact same experience with your podcast. So you can totally relate to what I'm saying.
It's truly, and it's such a fascinating moment. It's what I said last week, is to be born in a time that we have the ability to share our voice and to get it to people in a way that so many people couldn't share their voice. Women couldn't even write a novel. They had to pen it under a man's name. And here we are sharing and
putting it out there,
finding thousands of people that want to listen and hear about it. Because I think too, what I found and what I shared about the Forbes Women's Summit was, I think people have this perception that people who are successful or living their best life or who seem to have figured out how to be happy and live a good life don't have bad things that happen to them.
Yeah.
And that's just not the reality. It's how we take the bad things that happen to us and how we shift them as an opportunity instead of something that was directed at us to take us down.
Yeah.
Because everyone you meet, there's some challenge or cross to bear.
Yes.
Or some difficult thing to overcome.
Yep.
So, and I find it interesting that you had as many men that listened to, because I guess I'm surprised too, but that men tune in and they listen. When men say they follow me on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Rob is certainly hilarious and great, but that they really watch it and they're people with jobs and not just kids at home that don't have a job watching
so on
it.
my Google,
Talk about that.
On my Google Analytics, which I don't look at anymore, but I was looking at my Google Analytics when I was really profiling people and really starting my website. And I was putting some girls on there, and then I kind of turned it to mainly focus on me fashion-wise. The analytics were more than 50% of my followers were men. And, you know, obviously, you know, I think they found a lot of the women I interviewed, or men, interesting,
Yes.
as well as men probably like to look at cute girls in cute outfits, you know.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, I didn't see that coming. I thought when I started this, it was just going to be a
women.
female-driven, and it was like, no, every month, it was more than 50% were men. And I also get a lot of young girls who come up to me. They'll recognize me when I'm out. This happens a lot. Or their mothers will recognize me. I just had this happen at the Best Dressed Luncheon where a mother came up to me. I didn't know her, and she said, "Are you Bethie?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "My daughter follows you. She's obsessed with you. She's in college." And I get a lot of young girls who come up, and they know who I am, and I think they can sense, first of all, you know, they like the way I dress.
Right.
But they can sense, you know, young girls look up to older women.
They do. And they want to know, like, how can they move forward? What should they be thinking about?
Yeah.
And I think it gives them a freedom to be more them, to watch you being free.
Right.
And to see you going through Houston society where people all are a certain way, and for you to be different and to be accepted and welcomed in a way that is really meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to find your place so clearly.
Yes.
Because when you're young, you feel like you're alone a lot. I sense that with my daughter.
Yep.
And as you grow up, you realize that even when you feel isolated, you're not alone.
Right.
And whatever emotion you're feeling.
Right.
So how did your kids relate to you being young and spirited? How did that work? Was that hard? Because
yeah,
Bella, it was hard for Bella that I wasn't dressed like all the other moms at the school. We were talking about this yesterday after our Memorial Herman event about how we would all go to the school and our kids were like, "You don't look like the rest of the moms."
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't. So
and you didn't do this till after.
I didn't do this till they left, because my parents divorced when I was very young, and it was very, very difficult. And I had a good marriage. So, I mean, it was fine. It was a happy house, you know, so there wasn't any of that business going on.
Good.
So, I waited until my daughter, you know, the last one was out of the nest before I decided to take the spotlight and put it back on myself. You know, because I was focused on the kids. I was focused on my kids.
Which
and
they should be.
Yeah, you know, they're a full-time thing, and they were more important to me than I was, you know. But then, like I said, in 2011, it was sort of this dual thing. My daughter is getting ready to graduate and go off to college, and I'm getting this weird feeling, you know, that weird feeling like, why do I feel weird? Something's getting ready to change in my life. And then I was asked to do Dancing with the Houston Stars, which just made me blossom. And it all happened at once. But yes, in answer to your question, I waited till my kids were grown. In college, actually. However, in answer to your question, when I completely changed and became this single woman who acted like she was 21, you know, no, they weren't terribly fond of it, especially my son.
Interesting.
But I have really great kids, and they didn't like it. They didn't like it. But then as I kept going through this process, they ended up sort of getting on board with me, my daughter, pretty early, you know, because they knew I was just being authentic. You know, I was just being authentic, you know.
And it doesn't sound like you were reckless.
No, I didn't do drugs or, you know, nothing weird, you know,
were just
reckless.
choosing to have fun,
I still was the straight arrow. It was funny, you know, I'd be at a music festival, and I not only did I not do any drugs or anything like that, I don't drink at those things or anything, you know, I'm just myself. But I'm dressed in something stupid. And I can't tell you how many times I'm at music festivals jumping around, and they're like, hey, I know you've got some Molly, you know, can we have some? And I'm like, I don't have any, I'm not on any, I'm just crazy. I'm just having a lot of fun here. Dead Mouse is up there, you know, I'm having a great time. But I mean, I got approached a lot.
Can we have what you have?
Can we have what you have? No,
that
a lot.
is incredible.
Young people. And then I had a lot of them coming up offering me something. I'm like, no, I'm good, you know.
I got it worked out on my own.
I'm good. I even have a couple of stories. Like one time I went to Stereo Live and I was wearing like a tutu, something really dumb, you know. And I go up there and, you know, they're checking IDs, and this guy, he didn't look at my face. He just looked at what I was wearing. He goes, ID, please. And I hand it to him. And at the time I was 55 or 6 or so. And he goes, and he looks at me, and I go, I know. I said, don't worry. I know there's a lot of really bright lights in there. I'm not going to have a stroke. You don't need to get the ambulance. I'm going to be fine. He starts cracking up, you know. And then one other time I was that was at Stereo Live. I was at Hard Summer, which is an outdoor music festival outside of Los Angeles. And my daughter usually went with me to that, but she had to be somewhere else at that time. So I ended up going by myself. So I had my little purse, and I had my Yves Saint Laurent lipstick and my Chanel gloss in there. So I'm going through all these lines, and this lady who's checking my bag, she pulls out the lipstick and the gloss. She goes, you can't bring this in here. And I was like, why not? She said, if you're going to bring lipstick and lip gloss, it has to be prepackaged, because I guess kids put drugs in lip gloss. I don't know. So I said, why not? So I'm arguing with her. So I was like, because I'm a bit of a queen. I have the tattoo on the back of my neck to prove it. I can act like a queen if you put me in that mode. So I went all queen on her. I was like, you're not taking my lipstick, my lip gloss. First of all, it's Yves Saint Laurent and Chanel. Also, I need it. Like, my lips are going to get dry. I'm out here in the desert of California.
I need
these products. You don't understand. So she was like, but no. So I said, get the manager, please.
Yeah, I need a manager.
Mind you, there's like 100 kids trying to get through this line.
They're like, oh, lady, move aside. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And
you could throw this aside.
And I'm like, sorry, everybody, but, you know, I'm got to work this out. So this guy comes, he's maybe 30. He's a little bit older, but he's the manager. And I went up and I said, she won't let me take these in. And I said, I am 56 years old. If there's going to be any drugs in here, it's going to be like blood pressure medicine or something. And he starts howling, laughing. He goes, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Go right on through. Because everyone at these festivals they're not even 30.
No.
You know, let alone. So anyway, I've got a million more stories like that. Super fun, you know, just fun times.
But wow, I just don't go places by myself. Danette will even go on trips alone by herself and go have adventures.
Yeah, and I'll go with you next time.
I know. And she's a big music. I mean, you guys are going to have, you guys need to, for sure, get on the same page, because she would also fight for her Chanel lip gloss.
Well, I won. I won.
And she would not give it up either.
Yeah, I'm like.
But I think it takes a strong person to go do these things alone and be totally sober doing it and just know what makes you come alive.
Yeah.
It's a gift. It's a gift to have done the work to get to this place.
It's a gift I was given.
Okay, tell us about that.
It was just, the universe just gave me this gift of, we're going to let you do this and let you become this. You know, I didn't choose it. You know, I was barely single for like 5 minutes. And all of a sudden I got Facebook messaged by a 21-year-old guy who I didn't know who he was. I didn't know anything about him. He's like, hey, beautiful, I'd love to meet you. I'm like, what? You know, so this was just a gift I was given, just handed. So now that phase will never be over for me. And yet I'm moved on now to a little bit of a new phase. So I still love the music concerts and the fashion and everything. But now I'm 63. I'm in a little bit of a new phase in my life. I bought a house. I'm a grandmother, and I have another one on the way. And so now I'm a little more interested in maybe leading a little bit more of an adult life with maybe a more age-appropriate man. And maybe instead of lots of fun boys, maybe one man. And so I've just kind of entered a new phase, and it's time, you know. I love being a grandmother so much. It's just, and it's drawn my son and I as close as we possibly could be, and my daughter and my daughter-in-law, and you know, so it's a really, this is a phase a new phase that I'm really cherishing, you know, and I'm leaving that phase a little bit behind me, but that's okay, because I'd kind of, you know, run the gamut, and now I'm really kind of enjoying this new phase of, you know, I bought a house, which is adulting, you know, like now. So
had you always rented before that?
Oh, I had the hottest apartment on Allen Parkway. Everybody came.
Wow.
Yes, I had this gorgeous apartment on Allen Parkway. So yeah. So then when I was told I was going to become a grandmother, something just, I was like, I need to adult now. I need to get a house. I need somewhere to put them, you know, when they visit. And it was the right thing to do, because they all came to visit me over the 4th of July. And my grandson was still crawling at the time. Now he's walking all over the place. But I had this big open area because I didn't have a lot of furniture yet. And he was crawling back and forth and back. And my son was like, thank you for getting this house for us. You know, I did it for my family. And so it's a new phase that I'm really cherishing.
Amazing. So are you still writing and blogging?
Oh, yeah. But
I know you're posting a lot.
So I still have my website, BethieLife.com. I post everything that you'll see on Instagram or Facebook. I actually do in a post on my website. But I'm
And does that help with analytics?
I don't know. Probably.
To drive more people there?
Probably, because a lot of people check my website. But what I haven't been doing on my website that I did for, I guess, 5 or 6 years was the interviewing other people, the crushes. And now I'm doing just really kind of focusing on fashion and some events I go to and stuff like that. So when you say writing, I'm not really writing. I'm more like 3 sentences and then dressed by so-and-so and like where I'm at. And it's kind of more, it's more visual.
I think we've come to more visual. I know that's what applies to me unless I'm researching something or trying to find something. So that's really where our sharing with people seems to evolve too.
Yeah.
So what is the next chapter? What are the next charities? Or do you have things in mind? Or still forever the Ballet Board?
Forever the Ballet Board. You know, like I said, I've been on it 23 years. I was on exec for a couple years. I was on the committee to build the building in 2011.
Yes, capital campaign.
The capital campaign. That was really interesting. I'll tell you one thing I learned in being on that board was they had hired this group out of Atlanta to come help us figure out how to raise the money and all that, because this is big business. And the guy out of Atlanta said that Houston has the highest number of theater seats outside of New York City.
Wow.
And he's not talking about movie theaters. He's talking about theater seats. And I was like, we're all like, we do? You know, so we don't realize what a big arts community this is that we're in. But as for charities, the next chapter, I'm kind of back at a little bit of a blank slate, not completely, since I've decided to go into a little new phase in my life. There's a little bit of blank space that I don't know what I'm going to do with. But yes, I will always be on the ballet board. I will always be repping Houston Ballet. I just did a post there yesterday in front of the mural, doing one tomorrow in front of the mural, different dress. And I really love supporting charities right now. I don't really I'm kind of past the phase where I'm asked to chair anything anymore. I did that in my 30s and 40s, but I love going to the opera, museum, lots of luncheons and supporting a lot of charities in Houston, donating money and attending their events. And
well, you are busy.
Yeah.
And I feel like I see you everywhere I go. So I know you're going to other things I'm not even going to.
Yes. But, I don't go to as much as I used to because you get a little pickier,
We do.
But, and some things I started going to a couple of times that I've never been to before. Like I just went to the firefighters gala.
Oh,
what a blast was that,
Cute firefighters?
Well, yeah, that kind of helped. Not going to lie. So I was like, I pulled one of my friends. I was like, we need to try this gala. Well, it was so much fun. It was really fun. So I don't go to as much as I used to, but yeah, I'm out a lot.
And then Lauren's charity, the CC, Lauren Anderson.
Yes, the Lauren. I do donate to that. Lauren Anderson.
And then the Massies are real involved, but we're going to be out of town for that. I've never been to it, but it's all of the different theatrical, cultural community coming together in the arts.
I don't know a lot. I need to contact Lauren about that because I don't know a lot about that, what's happening there.
Okay.
I know she has her education fund over at Houston Ballet in her name, but what...
That event, we were both across the room but didn't see each other.
And she's involved in the Houston Arts Alliance.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay. That's what you're talking. I do know about that. Yeah.
Okay.
So she's, and that party's...
Next weekend.
Yeah.
Not this one.
And I had gone to that before. And that's a really good organization that supports, I hope I'm going to get this right, all the arts, and mostly, I believe, local arts and local artists.
Yeah.
So like when we go to the gala next week, I think there'll be art sitting out, which I could use some art for my house, so that'll be fun. But yeah, Lauren's heavily involved in that, and Tatiana Massey, who she and her husband were also involved with the ballet. That's how I first kind of met them.
Okay.
He was on the board, I believe. So that'll be a fun event. I lean toward the arts just because, I like the arts.
Well, any parting words to people trying to figure out their next steps in life?
Oh, my big parting words are this. Face the fear and do it anyway.
Oh.
Because you don't regret what you do, you will regret what you don't do. Even if you make a mistake, do it anyway. And to you ladies out there, do not for 1 second think about age and letting that stop you or dictate anything to you about how you feel, how you dress, how you think, how you lead your life. Put it out of your mind and do, if you're a teenager up here, do that. If you're in your 20s up here, do that. If you're 30, whatever, do who you are. And don't worry about it when anyone says or thinks. And you'll be happiest, even if it's not always easy.
Amen to that. Well, I think we're all going to live a little bit more authentically, and maybe we're a little bit more pink and more tutus.
Yes.
All right, guys, until we meet again.
Okay.
Ciao.